My name's Tim Calloway. I'm an aviation historian and editor of Aviation Classics magazine. And it's really, as a historian, that I'd like to start my objection to the iniquitous plan to build on this airfield. Because this place has been an airfield since 1930, when development began, opening in 1931. In 1937, the Royal Air Force arrived and set up number 18 Elementary Flying Training School. Well, Elementary and Reserve Flying Training School, as it was initially, which was to stay here until 1954. During the Second World War, they trained over 6,000 pilots here, some of whom took part in the Battle of Britain and were indeed the salvation of this nation. Now, it's interesting that that historical perspective of training pilots is so relevant today, because so many of the European airlines have announced they're going to have a requirement for over 7,500 pilots in the next 10 years. Now, if you close the training airfield, where are they going to get those pilots from? Building on this airfield is also contrary to the July 2018 white paper by the Ministry of Housing, no less, which is quite an interesting document because it says that the preservation of a network of national general aviation airports is vital to the national interest. Now, not just for training, but for business and commercial use, which this airfield is very, very successful at. Any hints to the fact that this is a non-profit making organisation are basically a complete lie. There's no two ways about it. But also for emergency services. Now, with Redhill having its planning application for a hard runway refused, there is a chance, and a good chance, that Redhill will be sold and developed on. Dunsfold is already under threat of closure and already has had a planning application approved for development of that airfield. This means that this airfield, Fairoaks, will be the last aerodrome in Surrey, and I wonder what Surrey residents would think if an air ambulance was unable to attend their emergency.
I'm Graham Davison, and I was a flying instructor here at Fairoaks Airport back in 2014. And because of the experiences that I had at this airfield, I then moved on to flying a business jet for 3 years, where I did 2 years of first officer role, and then I moved up to captain. And now I'm in a large European airline in a first officer role, flying the 737 series aeroplane. And I don't think people realise how important these airfields are to the aviation industry. Lessons that are taught at airfields like this can't be taught in a classroom. So if you have one student that picks up one intelligent conversation from an airfield like this, then carries it through his entire career, one day could save people's lives. I think the aviation industry, my passengers certainly, are safer because of the experiences I've had here at Fairoaks and the training that I had here at Fairoaks. Airfields like this, because they're so condensed and busy in the airspace, they give students a fantastic area to train in. Because if they can train in the most difficult airspace in the world, when they go on to fly airliners, everything else seems a lot easier because they've done the hard work, they've done the hard bit. I object to Fairoaks Airport closing because airfields like this are vital to the aviation industry. Today's 18, 19-year-old student training here at Fairoaks is tomorrow's airline pilot. And I don't know if you can hear how busy it is in the cafe, but all of those young children looking outside and looking at the aeroplanes are the next decade's airline pilots. And if they have the opportunity to train at airfields like this, that are the best training in the country and maybe in the world, they'll be the best airline pilots for the rest of their career, and in turn keeps everyone safe.
My name is Ian Leslie, Managing Director of High Level Photography and owner. The company's been going 35 years. It moved to Fairoaks in 2008. One, as a reason I have a personal interest in flying, which I have a private pilot's license. And secondly, we were looking to expand our photography services by moving into aerial photography. Some years later on, we purchased the aircraft which you see behind us. And then we bought a second aircraft last year, and that is on assignment over in Gloucester. My objection to Fairoaks closing is twofold. One, from a professional business point of view, and two, from a personal point of view. From a personal point of view, I took my first flying lesson here in 1987, trial lesson, and that's where I got my passion for flying. And then secondly, from the business point of view, one is our aircraft is based here. We're close to London. Currently our offices are based here, but unfortunately we're having to move our offices for a couple of reasons, but the aircraft are remaining here as long as Fairoaks stays as an airfield. And if Fairoaks stays as an airfield, we will be moving our offices back here. My professional reason why this airfield shouldn't go is one, is it's a training base. Two, it's a stepping stone into Europe. Considering all the kind of political shenanigans that are going on regarding Brexit, we need a foothold into Europe. We still will trade with Europe. There are a lot of aircraft based here that, particularly the PC-12s, that hop to and from Europe all the time. And this is a great stopping point, because the only other one really you've got, I think, is Biggin Hill from a practical point of view. Fairoaks' relationship with Battersea is kind of an informal one, but pilots, when they drop their passengers off at Battersea, they can't stay there for the day, so they'll come to Fairoaks, park up here, and at the end of the day, when their clients, customers need to go back, they fly from here to Battersea, pick them up, and then go onwards. So Fairoaks is an important staging point for those helicopters. It's close enough to Battersea. Otherwise, you've got White Waltham, you've got Denham, and it starts getting kind of quite complicated and more expensive for those particular pilots to relocate.
My name's Jonathan Clough. I'm the UK Director for Jetfly. Jetfly, we are the largest fractional operator of the Pilatus PC-12 in Europe, and we absolutely love using Fairoaks. The Pilatus PC-12 is the largest aircraft you can get into Fairoaks. We frequently use it for our co-owners that fly into Heathrow Terminal 5 and they hop over here 15 minutes and hop into their PC-12 and off they go. We frequently use it for guys who want to go up to Scotland shooting or down to the south of France to their boat. It's a very convenient airport for us. It's the proximity to London is wonderful if you do live in London, and also just the operations here is fantastic. It's discreet, it's friendly, they're very flexible. They will open throughout the night if we request any late night openings. It would just be such a shame to lose somewhere like Fairoaks, which is part of the fabric of the kind of general aviation and private aviation community around London. And it's also fundamental to the Jetfly business model.
My name's Simon Bantz. I'm an estate agent in Chobham. I run In Villages Estate Agents, which I've had the business here for 25 years. I have watched the village change over the 25 years dramatically, specifically with the volumes of traffic. I strongly oppose any development at Fairoaks. I think it would be a real shame to lose the airport. I've spent a lot of time up there at the cafe and watching the aircraft. I have a lot of friends that live around there as well. The traffic levels over the 25 years have dramatically increased. The Fairoaks development is proposing measures in Chobham to address the traffic issues, which I believe will only make it worse. So adding 3,000 cars, when we've already got Longcross locally being built as well, from Fairoaks, some of the traffic will go back towards the M25, but that will be a nightmare as well. The traffic coming through Chobham can only get worse, and it takes me sometimes 15 minutes at the moment to get out of my 10 to 15 minutes to get out of my driveway into the high street. And then I go out on an appointment, and it takes me 10 to 15 minutes to sit in a traffic jam to get back into the high street. So I cannot believe that adding 1,000 homes and 3,000 cars won't make that considerably worse. Developers automatically assume that they can build as many houses as possible and that people will flock in and buy them. The demand in Chobham and what is required in Chobham, and the only reason anyone should be building in Chobham, in my view, as a conservation village with character, surrounded by greenbelt, common land, the only houses that should be considered in Chobham is what the demand is for. And historically, over the 25 years I've been here, it's never been any different. The demand is for old character, individual location, decent gardens. Very rarely do I ever get asked for anything on an estate. Normally they specify they don't want to be on an estate. So it should be for the downsizers and for the professional couples coming out from London wanting to start life out in the Surrey area. They want to move out here, but specifically very high demand for bungalows, which we're very short of, and as I said, it's by creating another 1,000 houses there, in my view, will affect the average house price in Chobham. Yes, we have a good average house price of around 550 to 600,000. We don't have a huge amount of smaller properties, but they never sell that well, even when they are available, because the pricing for this area is too high. Garden Village, it's a housing estate. Don't care how they dress it up. Might seem very strange for this to come from an estate agent saying that they don't want houses, but I don't believe the demand is there, and I think it will severely affect the whole character of Chobham Village and what Chobham stands for. It's a small community. They want to double the size of it.
My name is Ken Bray. I started Bray Wealth Management here in Chobham. We moved here in 2005, 12 and a half years ago, having formed my company way back in 84, 35 years ago. Delighted being in the village, and we've been here happily ever since then. I live in Ottershaw, right on the borders of Surrey Heath and Runnymede. And as I say, my office is right in Chobham High Street, right in the middle of what is already a car park most of the day, virtually impossible for traffic to get along the high street, and getting busier and busier. Many HGVs who shouldn't be here already blocking up and ignoring all the signs. So goodness knows what's going to happen when they try to develop Fairoaks Garden Village. I know, and I've read the recent reports, the latest plans which we just officially put in, and I understand that to ease things, they're going to have a road going right through to the A320 from the A319. All I can say is that will be one more rat run for traffic coming across from the west, and with the advent of sat-nav, I dread to think what the extra 1,000 or so more commuters would do to this area, particularly Philpot Lane and all the adjacent roads. In addition to which, where I live in Ottershaw Park, we have obviously complaints now about airplane noises, which I would take any day to the number of properties that are going to be abutting and adjoining what is a very, very substantial former stately home converted into development, into residential properties. So I dread to think, I mean, that would be my major reason. I can't imagine what would happen, particularly when you think that we've already had a massive development over at Longcross. And I formerly was a councillor for Runnymede some years ago, and I'm convinced that there are any number of brownfield sites in the general area that could be developed easier. But of course, developers like to go into a nice green open area where it costs them a lot less money to go straight into a greenfield site. I understand the need for property, but to be done in such a gigantic fashion as this, in one great big hit into what is virtually a rural area, I think would be a massive, massive detriment to the whole of the area. So I'm passionately opposed to it, and I just hope that we will win the case. I'm convinced of that.
This is Greenbelt land. You need special planning permission to build on Greenbelt land, which I'm afraid the arguments that the council are putting forward are specious at best, and possibly they come from, shall we say, personal interest rather than any real fact. But as a natural habitat for wildlife, particularly birds of prey, the raptor population in this country has suffered horribly. We've lost 80% of our raptors in the last 15 years. And on this airfield you'll find kestrel, common buzzard, red kite, tawny owl, little owl, all of whom hunt freely because they can, because the airfield is here. The fact that it exists makes it a nature reserve, and quite an important one. So my objections are legion to this, and I'm currently working at another airfield, but as far as I can see, a threat to one of us is a threat to us all.